Yellowstone supervolcano. Today's article: why are thousands of animals leaving the active supervolcano? Sebastian Ketley, Express UK, reports thousands of Yellowstone native species are migrating away from the active supervolcano. This is what the scientists have announced. It's not the first time that we've seen the buffalo leaving. They've also left a couple of years ago, just before a spate of earthquake swarms. Now we know that there's also gas emissions, there's deformation, and just yesterday our dear friend Ben Fiorulo uploaded the rapid fire quake swarm that was going on in Yellowstone and in the Long Valley caldera, which is also a supervolcano, and that had a second rapid fire earthquake swarm again today. So they obviously feel these things. They can also hear them. They have very good hearing compared to humans. And of course, their sense of smell is much more intense than ours is. Now, perhaps they feel something, and that's why they have to leave. We know that animals do feel upcoming earthquakes. For example, insects, reptiles, even snakes. We've seen snakes, even frogs, snakes, we see them. They crawl out of their holes and crawl onto the sides of buildings and onto the roof of buildings, trying to get away from earthquakes. Now, something similar seems to be going on here in Yellowstone. The Yellowstone elk, in their thousands, are leaving the supervolcano each year to find higher grounds around the Yellowstone National Park. The annual mass migrations also give the wild Yellowstone residents the chance to feast on fresh grass and calve for the spring. But scientists have discovered these century-old migration patterns are changing in response to environmental cues. According to researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, tens of thousands of animals are now moving out of Yellowstone differently in response to the climate change. Gregory Rickbell, the postdoctorate researcher at UC Berkeley, said, "We found that the immediate environment is a very effective predictor of when migration occurs." The Yellowstone study combined GPS data and satellite imagery to track more than 400 animals from 9 Yellowstone herds. Every spring, the elk climb up into higher areas and return to the Yellowstone valleys and plains by the start of the autumn. But retreating snow lines and greening grasses are forcing the animals to migrate later than in the previous years. In some cases, female elk were found to leave in early May, but then leave in late July and the very next year. Now, in 2015, for instance, Yellowstone elk were found to travel to their wintry grazing ranges on average 50 days later than they did in 2001. That's over a month and a half later. The incredible study of Yellowstone volcano wildlife was published in the journal Global Change Biology. Arthur Middleton, a professor of wildlife management at Berkeley, said, "The decisions that these animals make about when to migrate are absolutely dependent on changes in the landscape, changes that are ultimately governed by, of course, the climate." And he goes on to add, "And in the future, with climate change, we should expect the timing of these mass movements to be altered, which will affect the other wildlife and the people who depend on them, including predators, scavengers, and hunters across the ecosystem." End quote. Now, although the elk are migrating at different times of the year to better adapt to the changing climate, the migrations could have a negative effect on Yellowstone as a whole. The Yellowstone elk herds are among the most populous animals in Yellowstone National Park, and they are estimated to be around the number of 20,000 strong. These animals are responsible for consuming a lot of the local vegetation, but are also a source of food for Yellowstone predators. Yellowstone grizzly bears and wolves, for instance, feed on baby elk in the spring. Professor Middleton said these elk eat a lot of things, and they are eaten by a lot of things. So wherever these masses of hundreds of thousands of elks are on the landscape determines who gets to eat and who doesn't. Now, in some cases, this could be sensitive populations of carnivores like grizzly bears or wolves, and on the human side, it could be hunters, some of whom are making their income as outfitters and guides. According to the U.S. National Park Service, Yellowstone has the largest concentration of animals in the lower 48 states in the United States. The supervolcano is in particular notable for its high concentrations of predators like bears, coyotes, wolves, and even, yes, mountain lions. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.